Hey, everybody. Welcome to this week's podcast. I'm Eric Green from Tax Rep Network. When I'm not doing Tax Rep Network and coaching accountants and lawyers how to build their practice, I am a tax partner with the law firm of Green and Sklarz, where we do civil and criminal taxpayer representation. This week, I decided to change tact. I was going to do a different program. And this will be, I think, reasonably brief as far as podcasts go. But whenever I discover something new for our practice, I like to let all of my tax rep members know. And I call this dialing for dollars. And a large part of what you do when you represent taxpayers before the IRS is spend a lot of time on the phone trying to get through to the IRS. And this has become such a headache over the last several years between budget cuts and everything else. It's really, in many instances, it's become a nightmare to try to get through to the government, right? You call the phone number, 800-829-3903, that's the collection line. And now you sit on hold and you're listening to the Muzak, that hasn't changed, by the way, in 20 years. And you wait, you finally get through, you get to a human being who often has a bad attitude, either can't help you, won't help you, or more and more these days, simply hangs up on you. And, so one is, of course, the frustration, but it does create a little bit of a practical problem. How do I go and bill my client for having just spent an hour and a half on hold to get nothing? Now, we're busy enough that if I call, or Amanda calls, or somebody in my office is calling, we're generally not calling for only one case. I'll call and I'll have 2 or 3 cases. Normally 3 is the maximum that they'll let you do. But, I kind of divide the time between the 3. I don't have any one client, pay for the whole thing. And certainly as an ethical issue, I don't hit all 3 for an hour and a half. I mean, I didn't spend 4.5 hours on the phone. So you divide the time between them, and, it is what it is. Or often if I can put them on hold or have the, while I'm sitting there listening to the music on speakerphone, I can sit and do other work and not have to bill my client while I'm on hold. Well, this is a big problem. All right, for a number of reasons. So I'm going to tell you a couple stories. One, of course, is just the dealing with this. Now, normally, if you're on the East Coast like I am, you'll do this and you get routed to Philadelphia. I don't know what's going on in Philadelphia, but the city of brotherly love my ass. They are the nastiest people down there. I don't know if they're not feeding them. I don't know if they're beating them when they show up in the morning. I don't know what the issue is going on in Philadelphia. You think they'd be happy since the Eagles won last year. I've tried to make pleasant conversation with them. For instance, there are 2 real big cheesesteak places. I think it's Geno's and Pat's. I don't remember the names of them, but I'd watched the Food Network show where they talked about it. So I'm on the phone with this woman. We're waiting for her to do something. So I'm trying to make pleasant conversation. I said, so in Philadelphia, the big cheesesteak places, which is it, Geno's or Pat's? And she was like, I don't eat that stuff. Okay, well, I tried. Anyway, how about them Eagles? Anyway, dealing with them is frustrating enough. So I'll tell you a couple stories. Number of things you need to think about. One, before you call, make sure, you have the story straight with your client. This happens a lot. In fact, it happened this week, is what prompted me to tell you this story. Client calls, I've been levied. The IRS levied me. I thought you were dealing with this. I'm like, we just set up a payment plan. This may have been a mistake. Now, after 20 years of doing this, I know better. I say, okay, are you sure it's the IRS that levied you? Of course, I went on, it says government. I'm like, call the bank. No, you got to get it released. I'm like, I'm not calling until you get me a copy of it. I want a copy of it. Almost inevitably, they'll call back and it'll be, oh, it was the Department of Labor. Oh, it was the state, which, by the way, they didn't mention to me they had a state problem. I asked, and they told me it was all under control. Well, obviously not. Make sure you know what it is you're calling about, right? No one wants to spend an hour and a half on the phone to call the IRS to find out the IRS didn't levy anybody. And again, I've learned all this from just making these mistakes. So learn from me. Don't do what I did. Figure out what the heck happened, because when the client calls you, they're hysterical. The world is ending. You got to do it. Okay, now as background, when I started my own practice years and years ago, my wife and I, in our first house, was a small house. We have 4 kids. They were all in daycare for 1 year at the same time. My oldest was about to, was leaving to go into first grade, and I had 2 toddlers and a newborn that were all newborn, 6 months old. They were all kind of there at the same time. And so my wife would drop them off in the morning. I would pick them up in the evening. So my evenings were dragging 4 children in with the backpacks and the lunch boxes and the snow gear, because we're in Connecticut. And I'm fighting with the 4 of them. But in order to get them on time, I had to leave work every day. Well, sometimes, as you know, if you're self-employed, that's not the way it works. So I would get home, and we had a very small home office off the foyer, which is really, it was a glorified closet, but I turned it into a home office. So I would call 800-829-3903, put it on speaker, and we would be listening to the Muzak for like an hour or so. And that's when I would fight with 4 children and get dinner started. Then my wife would arrive, and she would complain nonstop about the Muzak through the lower half of our floor. In fact, as a side note, I'm down in Boca at an American Bar tax section meeting, giving a talk on tax liens with Fred Schindler. Now, Fred I've mentioned him before on the podcast, is the director of collection within the IRS Office of Chief Counsel. So if there's a problem or anything to do with collection or collection policy, that falls under Fred's purview. I've known Fred for like 15 years, right? Dina knows Fred. We're all friendly. So after we give the talk, the ABA has this sort of reception that's open for everyone. And we're there, and I'm talking to Fred. And Dina, my wife, looks at Fred and says, "Fred, can you get them to change the music on the hold?" Fred's like, "What?" Dina's like, "Yeah, no, can you, the music, it like makes me crazy every night when he's home. Eric is home, and we're listening to this. Can you get them to change the music?" And Fred was like, "Yeah, I'll see what I can do." They've never changed the music, all right? But with sort of that as background, this is what I would do every night. So once again, coming home with the 4 kids who are fighting in the car, I get a call from the client. They levy the account. You got to get it released, got to get it released, got to get it released. Get home, drag the kids in, deal with that, call the 800 number. The Muzak is playing. I finally get through, and it was a woman. I said, "Ma'am, I need to get a levy release. You levied my client's bank account at Bank of America. We're just about done with the 433A. We're going to be submitting everything. This is, can we please just get a release?" And she said, "No, Mr. Green, I'm sorry. Your client, we've been chasing now for over a year. So no, I'm not going to release it. However, if it's causing an economic hardship, like he can't pay his rent, let me know how much money we got, and I'll release some of it back so he can pay the rent or whatever." How much did we get? I don't know. Client didn't mention that. And again, don't do what I did, right? Because my client called hysterical. I immediately ran home, got on the phone. Now, it's been an hour and a half. Now, I'm fighting with the kids, so I'm not going to charge my client for an hour and a half. But I've been on for an hour and a half. I call my cell phone, get the client, say, "How much did they get from the levy?" He says $87. Now, I'm $350 an hour. If I charge my client for this, it's a $500 phone call. So I get back on the phone. I said, "Ma'am, you know what? Don't worry about having it released. You got $87, but we're going to have at least 21 to 30 days before you levy again, correct?" She said, "Yes." I said, "Great. I'll call when the 433A is submitted so we can avoid this in the future." Again, learn from my mistake. Make sure you know it was the IRS and how much they got before you begin a several $100 battle to try to get a levy released. Now, you'll note that when I started this conversation, I mentioned we kind of had a breakthrough this week that I was going to fill you in on. Well, last year at the New England IRS Representation Conference, we had a company exhibit who I don't really know, call ENQ. I don't think anything of it. I don't really speak to them. And listen, we have lots of exhibitors, so, whatever. Well, the calling has gotten so bad. Amanda comes to me in our office and said, remember that company called ENQ? I'm like, no. And she's like, well, they have this system where you can get right through to the IRS. Can I sign up for it? So how much does it cost and whatever? She said, well, last year they offered a free trial, like 50 minutes free or whatever, and they guarantee you'll get through within 3 minutes. I'm like, well, see if they'll honor it, and sure, go ahead and sign up for it. She emails with them. They agree to honor it. They give us a discount code. Amanda signs up. Amanda doesn't get too excited about anything. She is like swooning over this. She gets through in 30 seconds. What Call ENQ does is they have people like almost like standing in line holding your place. So when you need to call the government and you log into their system, you will get through in under 3 minutes. We're not, everyone in our firm is now using this. In the last 10 days, we're getting in about 30 to 45 seconds. It's unbelievable. In fact, the one time I tried it a few days ago, I dial in, they're going to be on hold. I got up to go grab the file, and the person already picked up the phone. I got the Mrs. Smith ID number, blah, 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 blah. And it took me by surprise because I just wasn't prepared for that. So again, on the podcast for tax rep members and as a firm, we do not plug any product that we do not use ourselves, right? We're not some sort of commercial for anyone who wants to pay. We don't do that, all right? I will tell you, this product is awesome, okay? And that's why I'm doing a podcast just for this, okay? Well, not just for this, but definitely for this. The other thing is I'm also going to be linking below the podcast. I'm going to give you a link to ENQ, which I'll get to in a moment. I'm also going to put a link down there with our email. I'm going to start letting our podcast folks email in questions. And from time to time, I'm going to invite guests on, and we're just going to answer your questions. I think the IRS executives have indicated an interest in doing this. I know some other really top-end practitioners around the country in different areas we're going to have on. People have asked, they've emailed the law firm. I am going to create, it'll be down below, I believe it's podcast@taxrepllc.com. So you email podcast@taxrepllc.com, check the link to make sure I got this right. And you can actually email in questions. I will try to answer them on the podcast. So anyway, I emailed back the Andrew, the founder of Call ENQ, and I was like, dude, this is awesome. All right. This is awesome. And he said, Eric, love the podcast, whatever. Would you mind plugging it? I said, I'll definitely plug this because it works. It works phenomenally well. And I did ask him, he has provided a trial for all of our tax rep members. If you click on the link and go and sign up, you get 100 free minutes. Now, I just want to warn you, part of this deal, they will last for only 60 days, right? At the end of 60 days, it's use it or lose it for your free trial. So I would sign up when you have a call to make, all right? But go check this out. Call ENQ, click on the link below. You will get, we've arranged through TaxRep 100 free minutes to give this thing a try. It's awesome. If you have to call the government, this is fantastic. It will change your life. And let me just, Amanda actually told me this. She said, given the number of calls she, me, Eva, everyone in our firm does, she said, if we could save, on average, an hour a day, 5 hours a week at her billing rate is $1,000 a week. It's $52,000 of saved time. It's unreal. So I'm assuming the IRS doesn't figure out some way to blow this up and stop them. This is fantastic. I highly recommend you add this to your practice. Couple other things I want to tell you about. Like I told you, this would be a short podcast this week. Number one, remember, we're going to be doing on Friday, October 19th, I'm doing a free webinar on dealing with non-filers. I can't say much, but I have been in touch with the IRS executives. There are more than 7 million non-filers. I'm going to be doing a program on non-filers. In fact, that's the program I thought I was going to be doing this week. I'm going to work on it, and over the next few weeks, we will get that out. More than 7 million non-filers. Non-filers are a terrific form of business. Back bookkeeping, returns, resolution. Really, the government is going to be creating an initiative to go after these people. There's going to be a boon as far as the amount of work that's going to come in. All right. So on October 19th, I'm doing a free 1-hour lunch and learn, 1 p.m. Eastern time, on how to make money helping non-filers. All right. What do you do with a non-filer? How do you help these people? And how do you make a ton of money doing it? All right. So look for that. I'll try to get that link in as well. If not, we will definitely be posting that on our social media page. All right. In Facebook, LinkedIn, look for that. All right. The other thing, November 29th and November 30th is the New England IRS Representation Conference. The IRS executives will be there. We're going to be running breakout sessions. Mohegan Sun, which is the full day Friday program, is basically sold out. We have, I think, 4 or 5 seats left. Hotel rooms, I think there might be 1 or 2, but they're basically also sold out. We do have space. Now, this is if you want to come in person. The webcast, of course, is still open. You can certainly get in on the webcast. But if you want to be there in person, which is, of course, the best way to be there, just know that Friday's basically sold out. Now, Thursday, the LITC program, we have about 30 or 40 seats left. This is going to be totally cool. We're not only going to be doing a panel, which I'm on, talking about tax liens and dealing with tax liens, right? Withdrawal, subordination, discharge, but we're also going to then do a mock trial. Judge Garbus, Marvin Garbus, has agreed to come up again. He will be obviously playing the role of judge. One of our local assistant United States attorneys, Chris Sciarrino, will be representing the government, attempting to convert the lien to a judgment and foreclose and take the taxpayers home. Attorney Frank Agostino, my buddy down in Hackensack, is going to be defending the taxpayer. I think it's going to be totally cool to watch. If you've never seen a trial in the district court, this is going to be cool. All right. So anyway, keep those dates in mind. October 19th for the free webinar. November 29th and November 30th is the New England IRS Representation Conference. Meanwhile, go check out the link below for ENQ, and also check out the link if you want to email in your questions. I will try to deal with questions on the future podcast. All right, everyone, listen, thank you for joining me again, as you always do. Keep building your practices. Keep making more money. I think the 1040 business is going to be hurting. We're going to be doing a podcast on that as well, by the way. Keep listening in. Keep building your practices. Send me the questions you've got, and I'll see you inside Tax Rep LLC. Bye-bye.